oats, which we bought someplace. They thought I was asking for oats for seed, but we finally got that right. Rolled oats and hot milk that never tasted so good as a respite from daily toast with jam to start our 7-hour days of walking. We have taken our boots off, rolled up our pants, and walked across rivers innumerable times, picking little stones from between our toes at the end of the day, or needing a toothbrush to get the mud out of our toenails. I have sat on a sidewalk in the middle of town with my pack by my side, unable to stand no longer. I was exhausted. I felt like the donkey, Janusz, who was traveling a few hours behind us, who would decide he would go no further and simply balk mid-road. I have been treated to a beer by Senor Parada, the toothless owner of a bar, who was pleased we stopped by. We gifted him a pin of the Zia symbol from New Mexico, which he wore proudly, mistakenly thinking it was from Mexico, where he had one time sold contraband ham haunches. We paid a visit to a friend of mine who is the chef at the Parador, a deluxe tourist hotel, in Mérida. Spent the afternoon drinking wine with him and his son, who runs a wine tasting establishment. We were given a bottle of wine, 2 cookbooks with early Roman recipes. Mérida was an early Roman military retirement town. A complete picnic of 6 sandwiches with the finest jamón ibérico, 2 glass bottles of juice, a 1.5-liter bottled water, various bananas, oranges, apples, and pears, not to mention the plastic wrapped package of special ham and cheese. I swear to God, it was this thick. Sent to our room along with yet another fruit basket for a total of at least 15 pounds. All things which we pilgrims highly value, but cannot carry, as each extra pound tells on our bodies in aches and pains. Juan obviously had never carried a backpack very far. We went to bed that night in a quandary as to what to do. It was practically a sleepless night. You know, you just don't leave food behind. We didn't want him to find out. Well, in the end, we left most of it behind. Berto carried the wine, however. We have walked 299 kilometers, which is about 180 miles. My feet hurt. Roberto is patient with me as he coaxes me into town at the end of a long day. The last 2 kilometers seem always to be the most difficult. You are with me as I travel. Mm-hmm. This, I wanted to show you, this is my pilgrim credential, or credencial, which we got in Sevilla. And before we set out, we went to the cathedral with our backpacks, sat inside and a little side chapel and said a little prayer. Got our first stamp, which I think is this one. You can see it later. And then sat outside on a little bench and put our hands on our pack before we were to leave. So it gets stamped every single night and dated wherever we stay. Sometimes we had to stay in hotels because there were no albergues. And then at the end, when we arrive in Santiago, you go to the pilgrim's office and you get your Compostelana, which is a facsimile of what the pilgrims in the Middle Ages got. They would arrive there and they would get a Compostelana. This is all in Latin, Catarina, Lopez. And then they take it home as proof to their parish priest, and they would receive the pardons and the indulgences and whatever it is else they needed. You may be wondering why my arm is in a sling. I just got my splint off today. As I say, it was a very physical trip. It was very strenuous. discussion amongst Berto and I and some other friends as to what we were going to do the last day, because we wanted to get into Santiago by noon, because there is a midday mass for pilgrims. You get in time, you get your Compostelana, and your name is read out. Or they used to read the names, maybe they don't anymore. They just say so many people have checked in from the Via de la Plata, which we were doing. There is a mass, and there is this gigantic censer. It's solid silver. It takes 8 men to lift it. They bring it in on their shoulders. They attach it to this large rope that comes down from the ceiling, and it swings. It's lit and it's swung over the nave, across the nave, over the transept. And it gives you an idea, the size gives you an idea of how large the church is and how many pilgrims there were in the Middle Ages who stank, probably. I'm not sure that we were any different. But anyway, we wanted to get to the midday mass and to see all of our friends that were there. The previous evening we had to stay in a little hotel, and we asked the hotel owner, was there any other place to stay that was closer to Santiago? We wanted to make it in time. For Roberto and I, we knew that we were slow walkers, so we had to be careful about that. Well, I was given a slip of paper with a telephone number on it and said, this is a motel, you can call them up and make a reservation. Well, I was about to do that, and this was given to me by the wife. The male owner said, what's that? And I said, well, this is a motel that your wife gave me to call. He said, he grabbed paper from my hand. He said, absolutely not. Well, it was a no-tell motel. It evidently was one of those things where there's a garage on the bottom floor. You drive up, it opens automatically. You drive your car in, and the garage door closes behind you. And you go upstairs with whoever. Anyway, he said, absolutely not. You cannot stay there. So that was out, and we had to just do as all the other pilgrims did, which was stay in an albergue that was about 16 kilometers outside of Santiago, which meant for us about 5 hours of walking. So we were going to get up early. Well, it just so happened that the man who slept on top of me that night, which was not Roberto, on the bunk. I had never seen him before. He was Spanish. He had walked many more kilometers than I had that day before, or that day, to make it to Santiago the next day. And we had a short conversation as we said goodnight. And he was planning on getting up early because he was meeting his niece, who was doing another of the Santiago routes for chocolate and churros at 8:30 the next morning. Well, fine. Turns out we beat him out of the albergue. We were the second group of people, Roberto and I, to leave. 1.5 kilometers out of the albergue. It was dark, and I had a little flashlight, which was attached to my backpack. And I was walking with my poles. 1.5 kilometers out, I tripped and fell and dislocated my elbow.
Oh.
The first person to come up was Ramon. He was the only Spaniard that passed us the whole time I was lying there. He had a cell phone, and talk about synchronicity.